What up, gamers? Today on Dice and Dragons, as you can see, I'm flying solo, which means I'm going to be going boldly into new territory, as your regular co-hosts were not available for the filming of this episode, but you're still going to get a great review. And today, I will be reviewing Star Trek 5-Year Mission, designed by David E. Witcher and published by Mayfair Games. Now, the game can be a little bit hard to find. As some of you may know, Mayfair Games was bought by Asmodee. There are still a couple things coming out under the Mayfair branding. And if I'm not mistaken, this game may be out of print, but I was able to find a few copies at some different local game stores. So if it does interest you, don't be discouraged. The game is reasonably priced, and you should still be able to find it. Now, this is a 3 to 7 player cooperative game, very similar to Thanos Rising, for those of you that have seen our review of that video. If not, take a look at our channel feed, you'll be able to find it. It's also very similar to Yahtzee. In this game, you're going to be working together, rolling dice, trying to complete your missions and score enough points to complete your 5-year missions. So, stay tuned. We're going to boldly go where no man has gone before. As you can see, I've done my homework, been studying the blueprint of the TOS Enterprise. That's the one that's got a sweet spot in my heart. It was my first Star Trek show, even though I do really love TNG, and in this game, you can play as both crew. So, grab your drink, and in this case, grab your crew, and I'm gonna open it up and show you guys what we got. Since I'm flying solo here, I won't be solo for long. Going to grab our crew and let's take it to the table. Stay tuned. Now let's take a look at the components that you get in Star Trek 5-Year Mission. We'll start with the rulebook. So you get a nice simple rulebook. It does explain the differences between the two enterprises and the character cards, which really isn't that much. They're just a couple of nice special ability changes to add some flavor. But you're going to want to keep this rulebook with you because you've got a nice turn sequence right here that details what you can do on your turn. It explains all the icons and all of the alert special abilities. So we'll talk about the alerts next, but you'll see that when you get an alert with these different symbols on them, these 4 up here, they're dangerous, different things happen. And then these are special alert abilities. So when you resolve an alert, you keep the card and you are then able to use that ability on your turn. You also have the delta symbol that you can see right here. The delta means that is a scoring alert. Now, the reason why the scoring alert aspect is important, you need to get X amount of scoring alerts to win the game. And depending on how many alerts you get, how many you score, the rule book actually has a nice scoring table for you as well to tell you how you did. And just before I forget, you also have the dice requirements. This will explain what dice requirements you need to resolve different alerts. We'll go through a little bit of that when I go into the how to play, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. It's here, it's in the rule book, it's straightforward. Me explaining it would just be sort of a little bit of a waste of time. Now we have the timer. The timer you're going to lose whenever there is an urgent alert. So if it's urgent, you flip the timer, it starts counting down, and you got to resolve it before it runs out. We have our nice die pool right here, and I have the damage counter on it already, but here's the die pool, the dice pool. You've got the Enterprise 1701 or the Enterprise D, depending on what crew you're playing with. And you would place the damage token at the Star Trek here, meaning the Enterprise has no damage. Now we'll take a quick look at the alerts. You can see there is blue, yellow, red. And you'll be probably wondering why I have this split up a little bit the way I do. That's because this card here, To Boldly Go, is used no matter what crew you're playing as, whether it is the NCC 1701 or the TNG crew, the 1701D. The blue alerts, as you'll see from the cards here, you'll notice they always have that lightning bolt through them. You're going to use the blue alerts with both crews. There are also a few yellow alerts. I've separated them. There's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 yellow alerts that are also used with both crews. So in terms of storage features, I just like to take these alerts and keep them with the blue ones because I know that I'm going to be using them all the time. Other than that, the yellow and red alerts are separated into piles related to their specific crews. You can tell by the images on the card. Here we've got Uhura, TOS vidscreen, Spock, and if you take a look at the yellow alerts for TNG, you can see we've got the TNG engine room, we've got the bridge of the Enterprise D, and of course the crystalline entity. So it's definitely more thematic with the newer show, and it's the same for the red alerts. Don't want to take too much time there, but this also gives us an example to show you this is a very valuable alert. You can see it's a scoring alert, it's urgent, and what you need to resolve it. So that's the same with all alerts. You need to resolve them by placing the dies that meet the requirements onto the alerts, and you're going to be doing that as a group. You can see our nice die pool here. I'm just going to move the timer out of the way. We've got our red, yellow, and blue dies. And then, of course, we've got the crew, which are numbered 1 through 7. And the reason for that is depending on the player count that you are going to be using, the game recommends that you use specific characters. So if you're playing with 3 players, obviously you want Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. The TOS Trinity, that's what the game recommends. Now, if you want to play the game differently with different crew members, you can. There are rules for that in the game as well. You can find them in the rule book. You can even play as a time rift where you're going to be playing some TNG crew and some TOS crew. I'm not going to go over that. I really want to teach you guys more how to play the game and give you a taste for it. So we're going to move on to the setup shortly. I just want to show you guys that all the characters are double-sided. So Kirk turns into Picard, Spock turns into Riker, McCoy turns into Dr. Crusher. We've got Geordi right here on the other side of Montgomery Scott. Uhura becomes Deanna Troi. Hikaru Sulu is Commander Data. And last but not least, Pavel Chekhov becomes Worf. And you'll see they're all numbered once again. And notice that each character has a different special ability. And it is important to note that between the 2 crews, the special abilities are different. So let's take a look at Captain Picard's quickly. So for Picard, during replenishment, you may take 1 extra die from the pool if one is available. So you could get an extra die every turn. That's great. And then for Captain Kirk, as we're going to take a look at, it's different. One time on your turn, you may re-roll all of the dice of a single color. So the crews do have a little bit of a different flavor to them, and I think that's good because you wouldn't want both crews playing the same. Otherwise, what's the point of playing one or the other? Now that we have covered just the components, we'll take a closer look at some of the alerts and just not all of them, but some of the different effects that you will see in the game. Then we'll cover setup and take you through a turn. So stay tuned. Now we're going to take a closer look at the alerts in Star Trek 5-Year Mission. We've got our nice reference card. We've got our die pool if we need it, and we're only going to be really using it for the Enterprise and the damage track. We've got Captain James T. Kirk, our character, in case any of the alerts maybe negatively affect our character. So let's take a look at the alert cards. Here we've got To Boldly Go, your starting alert, where you need to roll a 5 or higher to pass the alert. But as you notice, there's no delta, there's nothing else. Resolving the alert just gets it off the board. And there's reasons for that being important. We'll talk more about that as we get into the how to play. And you've got your easy, medium, and hard alerts. So blue, yellow, red, that's the way it works. Let's take a look at some of the different alerts. So if we draw a blue alert, we might have one, oh, that's not good, we are injured. And now when your crew member gets injured by alert, you have to immediately take one of your die, put it into the injury pile. You're not able to use that die, and it can't be returned to the die pool. Let's see what another blue alert might do. It might just be something very simple. You need to roll a 3 or higher on a red die. This one, it's a 3 or higher on a yellow die. And those are really your basic alerts. And getting through them is good, but it's not really going to give us much more than that. So we'll put them aside for the moment. I like putting the discard at the top, and let's draw a couple other blue ones. So, until this card is resolved, players may only place 1 die on their turn. And that can be very, very challenging and very difficult because, as you can see, only 1 die per turn when we can potentially be rolling a total of 5, if not 6 die. That's difficult. You really want to get rid of that as soon as possible. And this is exactly what I was looking for. We've got a trade mission. Now, the trade mission has the prime directive symbol, meaning that this has to be the first alert resolved. We can't resolve any other alerts till we resolve this one. You need higher than 4 or 4 on a blue die, or 2 or less. And then if you resolve this alert, you get to keep it, and 1 die will become any color. And what happens is you resolve it, the character that resolves it keeps it. And that's a good example of the blue alerts. Let's take a look at some of the yellow alerts. Oh, we got a transport accident where we'd become injured. Oof. If we didn't have anyone healing Kirk, this would be a bad situation to be in. As you can see, it also has the delta, meaning it is a scoring alert. And we've got the timed token up here, well, actually urgent, which means we would flip over the timer and the countdown would start. And if we fail the alert, that's not a good thing. We'll talk about that more in the how to play, but that's what will happen with some of the yellow alerts. Just from the couple we've seen, you can see yellow alerts are more dangerous. Let's take a look at some of the other ones. Oh, so we got a sleeper ship. As you can see, this is fairly difficult. We've got 3 different die scores. You get a nice ability on this one where you can use someone else's ability, including your own. But we have to draw a red alert card immediately. I'll move the Enterprise over a little bit and slide the timer back to give us some room. And we'll draw a red alert. And oh, geez, we've got another timed one. And as the timer's already going, we've got less time for this one. It's also a scoring one. We need a high on a red and then 2 of any color. But if we succeed at this one, we can re-roll any of your dice. And that's challenging. Let's take a look at another yellow alert. Oh, this one is just a little bit more simple. Live long and prosper. A lot to roll, but it's a simple scoring alert. Let's take a look at 2 more red ones now. Ooh, another time one, the Carbonite maneuver. If failed, the Enterprise takes 2 damage. I'll explain what happened in this case. So if we fail the alert, meaning we don't beat it in the time, the Enterprise takes 2 damage. And as you can see on the damage track here, the more damage the Enterprise takes, the more difficult it becomes to repair it. So that's part of the challenge with regards to red alerts. And we'll take a look at one more. I don't want to spoil all this stuff. It needs to be a surprise. So here is a more simple red alert. Scoring, got a nice ability, but it still needs 3 die to resolve. And the reason why it's so challenging is when you've got this black border around it, and I neglected to mention that with the Tholian web, you've got to put these 2 die on there at the same time. And that is a very challenging aspect of the game. You can also see down here, it was the same thing for Live Long and Prosper. All 3 have to go in at the same time. And then this one, it's 2 out of the 3. And that is just a quick overview on the alerts. What we'll do right now is just go over some of the differences between the TOS crew and the TNG crew. We'll take a closer look at some of the characters and their abilities. Then we'll get into a turn of the game. We'll be right back. As I don't want to spend too much time going over all the characters, there are 7 of them, we're going to focus on 4. And the reason for that is I find that 4 is a solid player count. You'll be seeing it a lot. And if you, for example, want to play this with only 2 players, both players can each take control of 2 characters. So we'll take a look at the TOS heroes as well as the TNG heroes. So what is the differences between Captain Kirk and Spock? Well, Kirk, his special ability is 1 time on your turn. You may re-roll all of the dice of a single color. So if you completely fail rolling all your blue dice, we'll give you a good example here. We'll roll 2 die here. Let's say we really needed like a 4 and a 5 for whatever reason. We got 6 and 3. We can re-roll both of them. So that is a very solid special ability. With regards to Spock, 1 time on your turn after resolving an event, you may retrieve 1 die from that event and place it on another event, which is great. If you happen to succeed at clearing an alert, you get rid of the card and you can take the die and move it to another one. I'll get to an alert here and let's use an example. So we'll just take the starting one to boldly go. We'll move McCoy here for a second so you can see. So let's say Spock had then rolled a 6 blue. What that then means is he can then apply it to another alert. And if there's any alerts that can use it, and we'll use this one as an example here, the trade mission. Now, no, you do need to have them both go in at the same time, but if you say had a 2 or lower, you could send that in, that 6 in with another die if it fit the profile after already resolving and discarding that event. So, great special ability. Now we'll clean it up here and let's take a look at Dr. Leonard McCoy. One time on your turn, you may use one of your blue die to heal crew members' injuries. Move injury dice equal to the value that you've rolled on the blue die, which is really good. So roll a die, and you can remove up to 5 injuries. So that's really going to keep the team going, keep you in the game, and get rid of these nasty injuries. So for example, in that situation, if we had 4 injuries on 2 of the characters, we roll a 5, boom, boom, they're gone. And then let's take a look at Montgomery Scott. One time on your turn, you may place 1 blue die or 1 yellow die on a red die icon. So that's cool. It means that we can use different die than we're supposed to, which can be very helpful. And that is your core sort of TOS crew. Let's take a look at the next gen crew now. Let's flip them over, and as you can see, we get different abilities. So Picard, during replenishment, you may take 1 extra die from the pool if one is available. Meaning, if there is an extra die on the Enterprise on your die pool, let's just give you an example. Let's say Picard has 5 actions available. So during replenishment, he would be at 5 just because that's what it says in the rules. You can start with 5 die. He'd be able to add an extra die, any color of his choice during replenishment. So that's a very strong ability. Let's take a look at Commander Riker. One time on your turn, after resolving an event, take 1 die from the pool, roll, and use it immediately. So he's just a little bit different than Spock, whereas Spock would be able to just take whatever die he rolled and apply it. With regards to Riker, you take the die off, you would roll the die, and then you can apply this on any other event or mission that's out there. Let's take a look at Beverly Crusher now. So during dice placement, you may use 1 of your blue die to reduce 1 injury per crew member on a number of crew equal to the number on that die. So you can only use 1 of your blue die to do it, and you can only reduce 1 injury per crew member. Whereas McCoy, it was roll 4, you can reduce 4 injuries. Doesn't matter where it is. With Beverly Crusher, for example, if she'd rolled the 4, she would only be able to do 1, 2, and 3 because it is 1 per crew member. And finally, let's take a look at Geordi LaForge. So when placing a die to repair the Enterprise, instead of returning the die to the pool, re-roll it and place it in your actions box. Well, see, that is fairly fantastic because instead of spending that to repair the Enterprise, and we'll talk about that when we get into how to play, you're able to re-roll it and put it back in your action box immediately, meaning you can get it in play on that turn, which is very powerful. And the other reason we wanted to take a look at all of these guys, the different characters, is, you can play the Time Rift, and looking at some of the different abilities, you might actually want to play with Kirk, Riker, McCoy, and LaForge instead of the 4 TNG characters. But that's just really a quick overview of the characters. Now we'll take you quickly through setup, and then we'll get on to how to play. Now we're going to quickly go through the setup for Star Trek 5-year mission. As you can see, we've set up our play space. We've got our nice reference guide out. You're going to really want that, especially if it's the first time that you've played. And as we're doing this as a first time playthrough, we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4, our starting characters, Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and of course, Captain Scott. Gotta love Scotty. We have set aside the blue alerts. We have the yellow alerts, and we've also added in the alerts that are for both Enterprises, for TOS and TNG. And we have our red TOS alerts. We also have our nice timer. We gotta keep that out and in front of us as well. You're going to want to then take your damage token and get it on the starting damage track of the dice pool. Now the next thing we need to do is get our heroes some dice. So what are the crew going to be using today? Well, each crew is going to have 1 yellow, 2 red, and 2 blue die. So these will be their starting actions. And that is the same for all 4 heroes, or crew. I really should say crew. I'll try to work on that. So all 4 crew are going to have the same starting die. And there are also some differing rules depending on if you're playing with 3 to 4 players or if you're playing with more than 5 players, 5 and up essentially. Well, for 3 to 4 players, you take 1 die of each color and you add them to the dice pool. Otherwise, the rest of these die should be in play. If you are actually playing with 7 crew members, all these die will be in play. There won't be any left. If you're playing with 5 or more, you still don't add any to the die pool. They're just, any extras are returned to the box. In the case of the 3 to 4 player game though, we will build up a little bit of a starting dice pool, and the rest of these are going to be returned to the box. We've now set up the game, so we're going to come right back with the turn of Star Trek 5-Year Mission. Keep it right here. The play space is set up, the To Boldly Go card is out, and it's time for Captain James T. Kirk to take his turn. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is draw a new alert, and we'll try to keep this simple for the first part. So we've got the Court Martial, which means I need to get a 2 or higher on blue or 2 or less on red. So let's roll our die, and then let's see what happens. Oof. Not very good, because as you can see right here, this has to go in at the same time. But we do have Captain Kirk's special ability. 1 time on your turn, you may reroll all of the dice of a single color. While we do have the requirements in blue, I need something in red. So I'm going to reroll all of the red die here. And we didn't quite get it, which means nothing happens. I don't succeed at all. And all of the dice are returned into my action pool. It is now the turn of Mr. Spock. So let's keep this a little interesting and keep our play space nice and simple. We'll draw a yellow alert, and oof, we're already taking damage. So the Enterprise has taken 1 damage. And we are trying to get out of the neutral zone. Let's see what happens when Mr. Spock rolls. Well, now, isn't that interesting? We are able to resolve the Court Martial with the 2 and the 2. But that would be the only... Oh, no, we can also resolve To Boldly Go. Unfortunately, this 5 right here cannot be applied to the neutral zone because we don't get a yellow 3. We need specifically a yellow 3. These 2 die have to go in at the same time. But we still have a very successful turn with Spock. So the dies that aren't used then return to his action pool. The used die to resolve alerts then I get returned to the dice pool. We'll use that as our discard up there. Just makes it nice and easier. And it is Bones' turn. So what is it we're going to do with Bones? Well, we got some challenging alert out there. We don't necessarily want to dip into the red just yet. Let's draw another condition blue. And that's good. This is a card that we can assign multiple ones to. So let's take Leonard Bones McCoy's dice and let's see what happens. Let's roll the dice. Now that's not too bad actually. We get the 5 and we need a 4 or higher. We could use that. We did get a nice lower than 5 for the red here, but still no yellow 3. So we're not able to resolve that neutral zone alert just yet, but we do resolve this one. So we will take the blue die, add them back into the dice pool. We cannot heal the Enterprise. There is no die that's 4 or higher. That would have been another good possibility that we could have done. And we will put these back on Dr. McCoy. And it will now be Scotty's turn. And oh, before I forget, we did resolve this, so we've cleaned up some space. So now it's Scotty's turn. And before I forget, this is a scoring one, so we did clear one with a Delta Shield. And just for the sake of keeping things neat, I'm going to put that over here in front of us because that means we scored a point. Now, we're still having trouble with the neutral zone. but I want to show you guys some of the challenges that we can see in the game. So I will draw a red alert. That's not typically what you necessarily want to do, but we're doing it anyway. So Deep Space Station K7, and it's a scoring one, but it's just as challenging as the neutral zone. Let's see what Scotty can do for us here. Well, we've got, not quite. The 2, the 1, the 1, 4, and 3. Well, you got a couple different options that we can do here. We can take this 4 to repair the Enterprise, which is what I will do with that one. Return it to the dice pool. And then one time on your turn, place 1 blue die or yellow die on a red icon. On a red icon. Well, you know what? We can actually resolve this neutral zone alert thanks to Commander Montgomery Scott's special ability. So we can place a 3 there. So we can place a yellow or a blue die on a red icon. We'll do that with the neutral zone. That is now going to resolve that alert. We keep these 2 die. These die are then returned to the die pool. We will take this one. It's a scoring one. We'll move it aside. And we don't do anything with Deep Space Station K7. Now, as we haven't gone through the replenish dice part of the phase, we'll keep going just a little bit longer, but maybe I'll just go through Kirk and Spock's turn, because Spock is going to have to do the replenish die aspect. So for Captain James C. Kirk, he likes to live dangerously. Let's draw a yellow alert. So fire torpedoes, the Enterprise takes the damage. Always happens that way, doesn't it? Scotty fixes it, Kirk and Jim breaks it. But I mean, that's classic original series, so I really love that. But let's see what Captain Kirk can do with his next roll. All right. Well, we've got a very nice roll right here. We've got the 1, and we've got a 4 or higher on a red, so we can then place that out there. Do we have anything else that we can do? Well, we've got this 2 right here. And we need a blue 2. And as we're allowed to re-roll our blue die, because we're using Kirk's special ability, all die of any color. Let's do that. We unfortunately don't get the 2. We will then keep these as our actions. And it's now Mr. Spock's turn. Now for Mr. Spock's turn, we don't want to play it too risky. Well, this is actually a great example. We are now injured. So the first thing we do is we're injured. We have to take one of these die and put it in our injuries, meaning we're not going to be able to use it this turn. And when looking at the die that we need the least on the board, and let's not forget the timer came out, we want to time it immediately. We got to get that out of there or else we're going to fail. And if you fail a certain number of alerts, depends on the difficulty you're playing to, you can take a look at the track right here, which is how you're trying to score. But if I'm not mistaken, it is 10 alerts. If you fail 10 different alerts, so you just put them in a different pile, either right there or someplace else, you will have lost the game. So we got to beat that before things go bad. But in case we're injured, we move the red to injuries, meaning we can't use that die. We're still able to have up to 5 die. So we got 1, 2, where you can replenish 3 die. So we need some yellow. We can pick anything from the pool. Definitely could use yellow and blue, so we'll take another yellow and 2 blue. And because we're injured, we're only rolling 4 die for the dice this turn. Let's see what we get. We get the 3 or less. So we can apply that to the fire torpedoes. But we don't have anything else and the time's still running out, so we'll just have to live with that and move on to Dr. McCoy's turn. So we've got some bad stuff going on. McCoy's going to just try to keep it simple, but we got a scoring alert. It's beating me up, but we have to draw another yellow alert. Fire phaser, so we take another damage on the Enterprise, and we trigger a red alert. What then happens? So we've got a lot of stuff out there, and one thing that I didn't get a chance to talk about is you can only have 3 alerts of each color out at any one time. So if ever, for example, we'll just draw out another card. Let's say we were coming up to Dr. McCoy's turn. This was what we had in front of us. Then the next card we draw would have to be discarded into the failed alerts pile. Sorry, not the card we draw, but the card up top. We always move up. So essentially, let's say Dr. McCord is drawing well, we got dice here, so we'll say he draws a blue alert. In this case, we would then discard the transporter accident and slide everything up in that fashion, and this is our failed alert pile. But that's not what happened. So what we'll do is we'll put everything back the way that it was, and we'll take a look at Dr. McCoy's turn. Now you'll notice because I'm talking, I'm explaining, we're running out of time on the other alert, and just to keep things fair, I'll fail it even though it's only because I'm teaching you guys how to play the game. But sorry about that. So we have a fail alert. We ran out of time, but it's McCoy's turn. Now what are we going to want to do? It's kind of challenging out there, but it's clear that we need blue die. Now we'll do a replenish. Well, we got to draw an alert first. We want to get some of this stuff cleaned up. Let's draw a yellow alert, living dangerously. We've got the ambassadors. Now this is challenging because the ambassadors has the prime directive symbol, meaning this has to be resolved first before we can resolve anything else, but it does let us use one die as any color for the player that clears it. Let's draw, replenish our die pool. We've got our 5 die. Let's see what we get with bones. Bones rolls, and not bad, but not great. As we have to resolve this one, we need a yellow 5. We don't have the yellow 5, and we don't have any 6s. Only thing we can do is spend the die to heal. So we'll heal Spock, discard one of our blue die, and that will be the end of our actions. Things are getting tight. We'll do one more play as Montgomery Scott. I don't want to have him feel left out there, and then we'll go to our review of the game. You guys will have seen how to play. And I think you've got the gist of it now after seeing us go through, 2 full turns of the game. Things are looking tough over here. Scotty wants to keep it simple. We're going to draw a condition blue alert. We're going to fill up on what we can. Now we need a yellow die, and this is where the dice pool management comes in handy. We've got a lot of yellow dice on the board. We need one right now. Not too many with our players. We only got 1, so we're in tight. We also potentially want to heal the Enterprise. We don't really care what the color is. So we'll stock up on red. And let's see what we get. All right. Luckily, we get the yellow 5. We've got the 6. But unfortunately, what else we have? Once on your turn, you may place 1 blue or yellow down a red die icon. So unfortunately, we don't quite have what we need, but it's only on the red die icon. We can't do that either. We've made some progress now. We're not in as dire straits. We're coming up to Captain Kirk's turn. For example, in the playthrough, we only failed 1 alert. We scored twice. Not doing too bad. You've got the gist of the game, so stay tuned for the review. It's coming right up. Now, Star Trek, 5-year mission. What did I think of the game? Now, I have gone a few playthroughs of the game in. Some were with smaller player counts. We even played a game with 2 players. We both just had 2 of the crew members and played it with larger player counts as well. And I gotta say that the game is fun. It's enjoyable, but it is still a dice chucking game. Never forget that, despite the fact that the crew have powers that can mitigate some of the randomness, you're still rolling dice and hoping that you're going to get the values that you need. And while that's fun for some people, that's not as fun for other people. As you guys have seen from other reviews that we've done on the channel and that I've commented on, I'm not the biggest fan of dice chucking games. However, I think that, like Thanos Rising, this one is a cooperative game. And the fact that we're working together against luck and randomness really makes me personally enjoy the game more. Now let's talk about what are the things that I don't like about the game. I don't like necessarily some of the artwork. Everything is just stills from the series. And while that's good, it gives you that Star Trek flavor. I would have liked to have something more, maybe something created specifically for the game itself rather than just them using stock images. I would have been fine to maybe have a mix of stock images and maybe some artwork. Maybe just for the Enterprise, I'd have liked to see something maybe, just It's a little bit more detailed than what we actually got. But it doesn't necessarily take away from the theme. It just feels a little easy, if you know what I mean. The other thing that I didn't really like about the game is the potentially shrinking die pool. It's one of those things that if you get stuck with, let's say, too many blue dice on the board, and then there's a limited amount of the die pool, and you don't have any spare dice with your crew members, you can really put yourself in a tough position if you run out of any one die color. Now that does add to the cooperative element, and it's something that can be fun, but it can also be negative. It would be neat if there was another way to recuperate some of the dice that are on the board, but that's not something that I saw in the rulebook. Maybe I missed it. If I did miss it, feel free to correct me in the comments below, but that's one of the things that I could see as a potential negative. But it does throw in the strategy, so it does make the game harder. And the other thing that I don't like is the game is largely on luck. I have had some more difficult plays, had some very easy plays. One of the last playthroughs that I did of the game, we had one of my friends who just gets the god rolls on dice. It was like, we need ones, he rolled ones. We need threes, he rolled threes. And on the right color dice. And we just kind of breezed through the game a lot easier than I would have expected. The game took a lot less time than the number of minutes that it said on the box. But we did have a good time, so take it for what it is. It'd be neat if there were some other ways to potentially enhance the die rolls besides just the cards, but that would let you potentially, re-roll a die, select a specific value, and you get those by completing missions. It'd be neat if there were some character abilities that you could get that would also give you a little bit more flexibility, or potentially influence your allies' turns, your other crewmates' turns. That would be a lot of fun. That's something that we saw in Thanos Rising, and something that I didn't really see too much in this game. But that's iterative design for you, right? This is an earlier game, and Thanos Rising is essentially a 2018 game. I'm not going to talk about what I liked about this game. What I really liked is the cooperative element. I like the way you have to work together. You need to work and coordinate on a deeper level than you do in other cooperative dice throwing games like Thanos Rising. As you do have the limited die pool, you really have to strategically try to place your die, get the right rules, and sometimes not put too much of your resources out on the field. If you have too much out in your field trying to accomplish too many missions, you might put yourself in a bad spot. And while that can be a negative, because I don't see a way to get those back, it is also a positive in terms of the level of communication and things that will arise from that mechanic. And I'm just going to jump back quickly to things I don't like about the game. Now, there are some cards that actually affect gameplay, like the communication failure. You can't talk. And while that can be fun if you're experienced at the game, we had that card come out for the first time as I was trying to teach some people how to play the game. That was not fun. Made it challenging. I do think that some of my gaming group got to know the rules a little bit better and quicker, but they are experienced gamers, and I can see how having some of those cards in the deck with less experienced people, especially on a first or a second playthrough, can detract from the whole Star Trek 5-year mission experience that you're trying to provide them. Now, the cooperative nature is fantastic. The way that you need to work together, the way that you can resolve missions as a team, and that level of strategy, who is what die, what are we going to go for, what's a priority. It's a lot of fun, and I think it's really what makes the game shine. It also is what highlights the theme of being crew members on the Enterprise, trying to resolve the situations that we seem to get into every week and beat those villains if they do happen to show up. And the theme is done well. Like, overall, the theme is used well. It's a cooperative game, and you feel like you're part of the crew. And I don't really have much more to say about the game. The game is very straightforward. If you want to see some more of our comments on games like this, you can check out our Thanos Rising review. And if you're a fan of games like Yahtzee, this is probably the game for you. And with that being said, you guys can find more information about Dice and Dragons and our social media feeds in the video description below. Please comment, subscribe. It's not going to cost you any phaser blasts or photon torpedoes, and you definitely won't blow up the Enterprise. And from us here on Dice and Dragons, stay tuned for some pop-ups that should be showing up shortly with links to our other videos. Grab a drink, grab your crew. As you guys can see from my shirt here, you know the original crew's my boys. McCoy, Kirk, Spock, the holy trinity in terms of Star Trek. Take them out and you should get this game to the table. It is well worth playing. I give it a 7 on 10. And guys, remember, keep playing games, and we'll be back with another review next week.